Hi, New Hope. I want to invite you to walk through this journey with me as I explain to you what the Lord has been speaking to me and for our church in this season. You know, I want to walk you through a parallel of the Israelites exiting Egypt and then a sunrise from the birth to the present time to where we are today, currently as New Hope. You know, as we look back at the Israelites, you know, Moses was so key in being a messenger, but also a leader that would deliver the people out of bondage and into freedom. And when he left to go into the desert to spend time with his father-in-law and found his wife at that time, he had an encounter with God at the burning bush. And at that moment, God says, I want you to go back to Egypt and I want you to deliver my people out. I will show my signs and wonders, and it'll be an incredible display of how mighty our God is. Well, Moses, obviously hesitant and a little insecure, he went. And as he did, God displayed his wonders, and we saw the 10 plagues. And then all of a sudden, the people were delivered out. Pharaoh let them go. They came to the Red Sea, saw the Red Sea parted. They went across dry ground and got to the other side. Well, that's one side of the parallel. I want you to look at the other side of sunrise. You know, back in 1990, the Lord clearly spoke to our founding pastor saying that I want you to go to Simi Valley and I want you to be a part of the solution to deliver people out of bondage into the hope and an awareness of salvation in Jesus Christ. And God did the miraculous. We saw thousands of people come to Christ, people healed, set free, marriages restored, and we saw wonderful things. Some from 1990 all the way through to 1998, we saw amazing things. Our church grew so fast, and it was incredible how we expanded across Southern California and beyond. Well, that's that one side. But then you go to the Israelites, they get to the other side, and then all of a sudden Moses goes to the mountaintop, has this experience with God, gets the 10 Commandments, he comes down, the people rebelled, and there was sin in the camp, and all of a sudden God was fed up. And there was a period of time where the Lord wanted to destroy them all, but Moses pleaded for their lives, and God spared them. But the parallel, we look at sunrise from 1998 and the following years. There was a point of wandering, not understanding where we're going. It was kind of a survival, and people didn't have the direction. And where there's no vision, people do perish. And our church experienced kind of a death within us. And all of a sudden, we had no leadership directing us where to go. And there was a wandering at that time, all the way through. But you understand, in that wandering, in the desert and also during the time of sunrise, we had leadership that cared for people, and people were cared for along the way. God strategically placed leadership in a place on the Israelites' behalf and on sunrise's behalf where the people were cared for. But there were people who left and went their way, went to different churches. But God always had a promise for our church, as He always had a promise for the Israelites. When He had that promise He displayed when He said to Moses, Moses, you will not inherit the promised land, but you know what? I want you to empower Joshua, and Joshua will lead them. And they came to the Jordan River, the water's edge, and at that point, they knew that they were called to go forward, and Joshua led the charge, and the priests went forward, and they stepped into the water, and the water was dammed up 17 miles upriver during flood stage. The impossible, God fulfilled His promises again, and they walked across on dry land into the promised land. I believe today that God's called us, not as sunrise, but as New Hope, to step forward onto the Jordan's edge and move into the water and walk across on dry ground. But we're going to get a little wet doing this. And as we do, God's going to fulfill His promises in our lives. And as we cross, as we step out in faith, God wants to fulfill His promises that He established years ago that are going to be fulfilled today. Pastor Stan Wilson once said this in a teaching. He pulled out a fork and he says, hold on to your fork because the best is yet to come. Well, the best is here for us today. You know, the Lord has clearly spoken to Terry and I, is that we have now been working the last 3 years to take back the ground that has been taken from us from the enemy. But now the Lord is speaking to us to take new territory, to reach out there and take what the Lord has and receive the blessing that He has for us. There's a few things that we're going to be doing as we cross this Jordan and move into new territory the Lord has for us. One, we have ministries that will be expanding, and we'll be focusing on that. We have leadership that is stepping up to carry the baton, to run the race that is set out before us, to fulfill our greater purpose. But also, we really believe that the Lord has now for us to move from this location and to purchase our own building. You might be asking, well, why would we do this? We're satisfied where we are. No, we're not satisfied. One, we need to be in a place that we can better serve our community. And two, we do not want to be in debt to a lease. We want to purchase and be done so that every dime can go into ministry to impact more lives. And this will also create a home for us where we can call New Hope. It doesn't bring anything of the past that we've experienced, but it's something brand new the Lord has for us today. So just as we've seen, the Israelites, they crossed and they went, remember, they took down and they marched around Jericho and the walls came down. God's called us to step out in faith. As we march around the Jerichos of our life, we're going to see walls fall down and God's glory be lifted because God has something special for all of us. I want to encourage you to go on our website and listen to my teaching from March 8th to find out all the details of what I shared. I believe that it will help you understand exactly what the Lord is speaking to us today and what He has for us tomorrow. Because God has a future and a hope for us. So put on your seatbelts and get ready for this ride because God has a wonderful future for us.